Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel John Tui.
And this is MDK Presents Don Shanahan. Don, tell the folks who you are and what you do.
My name is Don Shanahan. By day, I'm an American school teacher in Chicago. By night, that makes you sound like a vampire, my bad. By night, I'm a press credentialed, Rotten Tomatoes approved film critic.
Boo.
I know.
Just let me enjoy things. Boo.
Right. Why'd you rate my favorite thing so poorly?
It's not rotten. It's not rotten.
Not rotten. How dare you?
It's fresh, goddammit.
Yeah.
So, Don, me and you met a couple of years ago. We both worked 25YL, writing movie reviews, kicking ass, doing what we do, writing columns, whatever. But that's how I got into writing reviews. But how did you get into writing reviews?
Oh man, here, like all the way back to beginning. All right, so I got into movies when I was 16, 17 years old to get over a girl, because that's what boys do,
Well, it's exactly what boys do.
That's right. So first girlfriend, first hard breakup. What are you gonna do? Like, I need something to take my mind off this. So I started going to the movies. That was like the summer of 1996. And that was like Twister and Independence Day and that wild and crazy summer. And it's hot around where I'm at. So like that was like an air conditioned vacation, was 2 hours at a movie, right?
Yeah.
So I started to get really into movies. I'd watch movies a little bit as a kid, like everybody does, but like it really kind of capped off at Disney and basic stuff. I never really dove deep into anything, or my parents aren't big movie people. Even today, they're like, I don't get the movie stuff you do, Don. What do you do? Like, they don't understand.
You're an educator, Don. What's with the movie stuff?
Yeah, you do that movie thing at night. What? They don't get it at all. Yeah. So I can show them websites with my face and name. They're like, what? No.
You're a teacher, Don. You don't belong in these places.
Right. So by the time I started watching a lot of movies, I started kind of thinking about them, talking about them with other people. And my high school journalism teacher said, Don, you should write the movie review piece for the school paper. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I did that for like 2 years of like high school classes. And then when I went to undergraduate college to be a school teacher, I did school newspaper on the side. And I was at the movies with Don for 4 years of college. And did the whole, kind of became the resident movie dork that everybody has in their little social circle at school, where if people needed to borrow, I always had like the biggest movie collection, and it was like VHS. So people would come to my dorm room and like, Don, man, I need a movie tonight. Like, oh yeah, sure, come on right over, Or at the time, of course, I worked at a video store during college for a couple of years.
Obviously,
of course, where that was my sponge moment, where not only was it cool working there, but then I started to like go through the shelves and find old things I've always heard about and like fill in like the backlog of like, because I was good 90s and current, but like I didn't know my classics. Yeah. So I started to pick a lot of that up. But yeah, and then the other cool thing was working at the video store, the new releases that normally come out around here, Tuesday was always new release day in the States, where the new movie would hit. And back in the day, we all remember where it took like 6 months or a year between when a movie hit theaters and then finally hit video.
Yeah,
I would always get them like on Friday, like early. They would give us workers the preview copies before they hit the shelves Tuesday, because our boss is like, well, we want you to be familiar with the things you're advertising to your people. And I'm like, I'm just going to take these and show them to my friends. And they're like, because they're going to be like, how the fuck did you get that so early? Like, it's not even out yet. I'm like, guys, I got the hookup.
Yeah.
So
I do what I do.
Right. So as the movie hookup guy for 4 years of college, I was that guy. And then I graduated and I kind of had to grow up. I know. So this is all, I graduated college in 2001. That's, well before social media, well before blogging and writing or anything like that was out there for people to do. And yeah, I was a school teacher and did this teacher thing. I still watch movies like a fan, but I totally didn't write or do anything creative with it. I finally found, or people found, I found Facebook around 2009. Yeah. And then, yeah, kind of reconnected. I think when most people find Facebook, they found it through their high school and college classmates. Like that's where Facebook kind of started. And that's how I got into it. And a bunch of friends who I had not seen for, 8, 9, 10 years are like, Don, man, how you doing? And hey, are you still kind of a movie guy? I'm like, yeah, I see movies a ton and all that. They're like, man, I miss your writing. You were always so good at it. You should start a blog. And I'm like, what the fuck's a blog? Oh, it's this thing where you make a little website and you just share your opinions on shit like chefs and cooking and moms. I'm like, okay. So I said, well, I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, that would be kind of fun to put thoughts and movies down and what that could look like. And by that point, I was a teacher for 7-8 years, and I kind of had that lens to my thoughts, my thinking, and I wanted to do something that kind of could stand out. So because I didn't want to sound like everybody else. Like I didn't want to be at the movies with Don again, where it's just another cisgender white male talking about movies.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Let me combine my teacher lens with it. So my blog was, and it's still going, is it's called Every Movie Has a Lesson. Yeah. And what I would do is I would review movies, but kind of with a teacher's eye, with the idea that every movie can teach something, and sometimes that's serious lessons, sometimes that's sarcastic lessons. Yeah. So sometimes you watch a horror movie and you're like, hey, don't go down the hallway by yourself. Yeah. And I would kind of take those little asides in my reviews and be like, at the same time I was critiquing the movie or summarizing it, I would kind of pause and go, lesson number 1, don't go down the hallway. Lesson number 2, don't go after the person down the hallway. So it was like serious and farcical at the same time. And that was kind of my little hook, was to do something a little different like that. And that kind of evolved quickly, where I found places to get published farther. I started to write for examiner.com in 2010, 2011. And that was like an online newspaper. They tried to be kind of regionally based. That lasted about 5 years, and then the whole site just inexplicably closed. But for a while there, I was the Chicago Film Examiner, or a Chicago Film Examiner for that site. And that gave me, that was a big enough site in terms of readership, where I started to get to press things or get emailed about things or run into certain people or find different screenings to go to, where it was always like as a fan, but not really as a press person. And then I started to meet people who are like, oh, you should talk to this guy. He writes movie reviews all the time. I'm like, yeah, sure. So, and here in Chicago, this is kind of the cradle of Siskel and Ebert, who I grew up watching and all that. And those people who run his site, and at the time he was still alive, at least Ebert was.
Boo.
I know. but I started to run into kind of those folks who are now my peers, like those press people who were like, oh, this is so and so, he writes for this, or oh, look over there, that's Roger Ebert watching a movie, and that kind of thing, where I started to inch closer to that, and I started to kind of pick their brains, like, hey, how do you do this more full time or more at a level? And they're like, oh, you got to get on this list. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean the list? Like, now I'm making a Schindler's List. I'm going to say the Holocaust or something.
Jesus Christ.
And what they meant was, like, there's PR firms that kind of run all the things, in our given cities. And they're like, hey, yeah, here's the person's contact for this, and tell them what you do, kind of give them your tail to tape like a boxer, and say you'd like to kind of be considered for the press list. So by that point, that was about like 2015. Where I kind of, I knocked on the door and got accepted into being considered for all those press opportunities here in the city. And it was still kind of low. I'm not like, I'm not Roger Ebert. So I'm still kind of a mom blogger, more than anything, with this little teacher who writes this website.
Not as big as Roger, but also less dead. So
yeah,
correct.
And also you got better taste. He didn't like the thing.
Yeah.
You can suck a
He
dick.
Didn't like much. Yeah. I only
he couldn't suck a dick.
Because he's a corpse.
Yeah, he lost his jaw. So I only met him once, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. It was different story, different day, but like I was going to a screening that I got just completely accidentally. Like it was for the Narnia movie, the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And I was running late. My wife got to go, and it was like the first time I've ever been to like a press screening, an early screening. And for press, like I had to go there and be like, hey, I'm Don from Examiner. And they're like, oh, well, right this way. And like, not really, but they were like, yep, okay, good, go in there, number 7, And the movie had already started. I get in there late, and it's dark, and I can't find where I'm. I just find the first 2 open seats I can find. I don't know who's next to me on either side, but I saved a seat for my wife. So my wife comes in. She's like, hey, I met Roger Ebert's wife in the lobby. She's like, he's probably in here somewhere. So I look over to my right, I look over to my left, and seriously, in the seat next to me is Roger Ebert. I sat in his personal space, not realizing how late I was. And at that point of his life, he had lost his ability to speak. Yeah, I had the jaw thing, had the scarf all up and all that. But it was like, and of course you don't get to like shoot the shit with him after the movie, but it was kind of cool to be like, what? Look at that guy.
Just the presence of him being there.
But so getting on that press list was the difference, where I just wrote more. I started to cover more things because I had more access to things. And about 3 years ago, by that point, then Rotten Tomatoes kind of expanded what they used to do for critics, where they were pretty tight for a long time, where you had to be in a pretty vetted publication, or you had to have massive readership and all that, where and I also, by that point, I started to kind of knock on the door into some critics organizations, because once you that was kind of a shoots and ladders shortcut to getting on Rotten Tomatoes. Was if you're in a recognized press group, you can be considered on Rotten Tomatoes even if your site's not big enough.
Yeah.
So I was in the Online Film Critics Society at that point. I was in another little second Chicago group by that point. And then once I got on Rotten Tomatoes, that was kind of like a bucket list thing where, yeah, you would have told me 10 years before then, when I was the teacher starting a mom blog, hey, you're gonna be on Rotten Tomatoes someday. I'm like, bullshit. So yeah, once I'm there, I started to find other places to kind of get noticed and get right. And it's been 25 whale for about, it'll be 3 years here in June, where that's been huge for me, because my little blog does fine. Like I probably get in a good month like 18,000 views, which is pretty good for a dude just writing. But the 25 whale gets 160 to 200,000 people reading and seeing your stuff. And that has been just the jetpack for me, where now that I write for a site that big, then it's like, Critics Choice Association, Hollywood Critics Association, like big national amazing groups, or the studios now notice and want more things from you, because you write for a legit site, not just another blogger. Yeah. And all along the way, thanks to, editing, and people like, well, honestly, people like you, Vinny, like just my work's gotten tighter, my work's gotten better. It's gotten to the point where, yeah, I'm at a comfortable place of nice middle ground where I'm still a teacher. I'm still a dad. I'm not trying to do this freelance for money at all. Yeah. Like this all is all free. I don't get paid on any of this stuff, and I'm fine with that. I know some people wouldn't do that, would want this for their jobs, want this as a full-time thing. I know there's no money in it, so I'm just happy to kind of do it on the side and do it well.
Get the goodies and get the experience.
And that's the thing for me, is like just being there, just seeing these movies, even just the idea of seeing the movies for free and early. That's perk enough, I've gotten to the point where like Netflix pays for my Netflix 6 months at a time. They send me a voucher code and there's 6 months of Netflix. I'm like, that's perk enough. That saves me whatever money that is. So yeah, I've also, now that I'm on 25 well on a big site, I've reached a point where I don't have to super duper review everything. Like I was a hungrier person 5 years ago, where I had to like beg to get into things. Now I don't have to beg to get into anything, and I can kind of coast a little bit, like be consistent, do good work, but I don't have to cover every little thing in the whole wide world. So that's kind of been nice, is to just reach a secure, easy place. And so that's how it got me there. Yeah.
Is that everything that's happened in your life? Like every single thing, every single thing up till now?
Is everything what?
Is that everything that's happened in your life up till now?
Oh my God. Well, in between there, it was getting getting divorced, getting married, having 2 kids. I've changed full-time teaching jobs 5 times in the last 12 years. So
tried to kill the Superman a few times.
Yeah. It's been a topsy-turvy thing where, like the last 3 years have felt like the first time it's a secure bit of cruise control, where the movie thing is easy.
That's cool.
The movie thing is easy. The career thing is stable. The kids are growing up where they're not babies, and it's not diapers and horrible stuff. And
you worked hard enough for it to be a bit easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
when you put in your hours, it's not like you coasted to here and continue to coast.
Right.
You put in, you put. That's it. That's what everyone should work towards.
Right.
Everyone should work towards a plateau where they love what they're doing and they're doing what they love.
That's the thing. Like, I think that one of the goals I've had is never make this feel like work if you can try. Like
that's it, exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, Vinny knows this, and you both know this. Like, there's deadlines, there's stuff to do, and you get requests to do this and requests to do that every now and then. But like, luckily I've never walked out of a review going, oh crap, I'm stuck doing that review. It so feels like work, and it's always still been fun. But I meet a lot of people who are those grinders who are trying to freelance and do it full time, where that's work. you know, and they it's a grind, and you can see it grade them and whittle them down. And those are the cynical, disillusioned, beaten up critics that I see down the row, who are like just assholes because they just see too much, and nothing ever sticks, and they don't care.
Do you think it's a case of, like, as you evolved as not just a critic, but in terms of your reputation in the critic space, that you've now allowed yourself, or the opportunities have allowed you, as you mentioned, to be a little bit more picky about the movies you go see? And because you're being a bit more picky and choosy, you're going to see things that actually kind of resonate with you from the outset, things that catch your eye. So you're going into films now that you're kind of like, not that you're going to enjoy nonetheless, but like movies that you're going to have an appreciation for going into. So a lot of the times it doesn't feel like work, is what you're saying, that like now that you found this comfortable space that you're operating in, that it feels more like kind of like pleasure and work have become one thing.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And some of that is big stuff and little stuff. Like, I get pitched things all the time. Like the smaller little indie labels that do films, or even just like, I'll get people who do like the contact me page on my website, and hey, I have a student film from this college. Love to, I mean, I hear you're a critic and you're a school teacher. I'd love to have you see it. And it's at that point, it's all about the kind of the premise of the movie, where I'm not a big horror guy, so I stay out a lot of that stuff. But like, I know, I have to learn. I got to get my palate better. I have to become a Scotch whiskey drinker instead of a Tennessee whiskey drinker. You know? No, but no, like I'll take this week. Like, there's that Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum movie. What is it? The Lost City?
Yeah,
coming out soon. Like, that's one I'm like, you know what? I don't need to see it. I don't have to see it. I can maybe skip that. But then there's like one of these little pitches. Some little indie director came to me, like, you know, I think he's a Chicagoan, and he's like got a little film that has no distribution. He's just trying to get it into festivals. And he's like, you know, a review from somebody who's done stuff would really help us out. And I'm like, you know what? I'd be happy to see your film. So yeah, those opportunities are definitely pointed with the arrow of more pleasure over work. And I'm cool with that, both little and big, you know, like it doesn't always have to be, you know, I'm just here to see the Batman guys because it's the big movie. But then no, maybe I'll go see some little film. And I think by being open enough to do the little stuff and the big stuff, I think it keeps my cred up a little bit, because I think a lot of people who get to this plateau that I'm at, they just see the things that are handed to them, and big stuff only. They forget their roots. They forget like the little indie stuff that got you there and got us there. And I still cover that stuff, and I like that stuff.
Yeah, you always have to remember you're a nobody from nowhere. That's why I always say to Noel.
I think the other thing is I'm not trying to chase anybody's spot or job. Like, and same thing with Chicago. It's big city. Like I said, it's the cradle of Roger Ebert. All that whole flagship still operates here, where there's a lot of people who just want that big byline, want that big spot, and, you know, are just bite, scrap, and steal to get published or get noticed. And I'm not. I'm just like, I've got that, like, just the critic stuff. The associations are there for me. The Rotten Tomatoes is there for me. My own site is fine. And then 25 Well is great, where I'm not trying to get on television. I'm not trying to go further. Like, my ladder climbing is comfortable. But I know people who are just like, how are you happy right now? I'm like, how am I not happy? I'm not missing my family or missing my career, and I get all the things you get without biting, scratching, and stealing like you are for it. Yeah. So they're like, Don, you make it look easy. And I'm like, well, I just make my life work where it does. The other thing that kind of goes to your question is, now I've been doing this long enough where I can kind of, in a way, give back. Like, there's a lot of young critics coming up, and I'll be in critics groups where we recruit a lot of little rookies and people like that. And it's like I'll know enough people or have enough connections or have been doing this long enough time where the people will come to me like, hey, Don, how do I get into this? How do I get into that? And I'll help them get in. And pay forward. So I've become the veteran, you know, and I love doing that part. So. Yeah,
because when I was writing with 25 Well, like you sent me links and stuff on how to improve as writing reviews and how to kind of do short, snappy reviews, because like I kind of got caught in between that space where, you know, a lot with 25 Well, we do a lot of think pieces, we do a lot of movie essays. So there's a big difference when you have to write like 1,000-word review and get really to the point than when you're writing a think piece where you're really dissecting a movie. And like it's stuff like that, like it's like when I was coming up and you sent me links like that, and when I started 25 25YL, they help to no end, because like just to have the idea of a direction to go in, because a lot of the times people are walking blindly into these new careers or these new passions, and if you have a direction from someone that's more experienced like you, like it fucking helps so much. Like shit like that really does help. So like hearing that you're actually out there helping up the new critics coming up, like that's fucking that's some cool shit, like, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I had critics above me help. You know, like when I was first coming up, they're like, you know, Don. You know, I had there's a gray bearded veteran here in the city. His name is Dan Geyer. I'll shout out Dan Geyer. He writes for the Daily Herald. He's been doing this like 35 years, and I was kind of he's a college professor on the same time that he's a film critic, or he's kind of semi-retired now, but he kind of does all that stuff. And he liked my work. I enjoyed meeting him, like just in person, all that. He's like, hey, send me one of your reviews sometime. I'd love to see what you write, Don. And I said, well, if I do, can you give me some tips and critiques? And yeah, he eviscerated what I wrote, but in a good way of like, hey, let me break you down and build you back up. Like, you know, point your arrow here, change this to here, or be mindful about this, or don't use that. And those pieces of advice for a couple of months there stuck with me and has improved my work from there. And then, yeah, now you're right. I'm at that point where I'll end up being an example to somebody. Like just the other day at 25YL, we're trying to get some new writer up and going, and the person turned in their review, and it was very I, me, my, like a lot of first person, like, oh, I like this, I like that, and it sounds like a cute little kid talking about a movie. And the editor's like, hey, this isn't really kind of up to snuff, but work on it and come back to it. And the writer's like, well, what am I missing? He's like, well, go read one of Don's reviews. And I'm like, that's the coolest compliment I can get right now, is that two things. One, I can be an example. And then two, when an editor likes, like, wouldn't even like when an editor says, man, you writing about that movie made me want to see it. I'm like, I said, that's cool. I know I can hook fans and buddies and colleagues, but when I can hook an editor into wanting to watch a movie, then I know I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I did that a couple of times too, where like at the start I got eviscerated, as you said, like by editors, and that's the best thing for you though, like constructive criticism.
If you can take it,
like,
and if it's constructive,
if
there's actually like
25YL give you great constructive criticism. Like Cameron, even though me and him butted heads more than one occasion, he made me a far superior writer than I was when I started there. Matt Armitage as well. Like he
that's tough.
Yeah, Laura Stewart as well. Like, you know what I mean? She's great. She's a great kind of like gentle hand. She's like great. Like she's great at telling you fucked up, but in the most polite way possible. You know what I mean? And they have that excellent balance. And when you get a good editor, it really can develop you as a writer, though. It really can. Like I was like, at first it hurts. You get butt hurt so much when somebody's tearing you down and you're not used to it. It hurts so much. First 10 times it hurts. Then you grow a little numb to it, and then you can get better. And that's what I find. Like, you know.
But Noel's right. It's weird right now because like you said, working at 25YL, we got a bit of a revolving door where, I'm steady on there, but there's always extra people trying to kind of get that spot. And the cool part about 25YL is it's really open. Like if you want to come right there and you got a good idea, they'll take your pitch and they'll have you. But I'm with what Noel said. I meet a lot of young people who can't take it and they quit. Or they're just whatever weird little ego and arrogance they have to be like, well, what I wrote is great and it's mine and it's fine. And like and then some other second opinions they'll get will be like, you're a great hot take artist, but no, it's not this level of this. You're not examining and critiquing to what we're looking for at this site, or even just what is considered professional and decent, not even on this site. And I meet a lot of critics who can't take it. And all they do then is they kind of miss a shot at doing something better and improving, and they never get higher than a letterboxd user who just has hot takes and a YouTube channel. You know, they'll never get a real gig or spot because they're not willing to work to improve. And that's I hate to be the old person that says it's a young millennial problem, but I feel like it's a young millennial problem.
I just think when it comes to writing, especially something that's so continuous as articles or columns or movies, you have to get into that grinding attitude. Like when I started 25YL, like, you know, I wanted to write as often and as much as possible because that's the only way you can get better, and it's the only way you can get used to the criticisms of editors and shit. And then I seen how much you were releasing. I was like, I gotta start grinding like Don, because Don's fucking releasing that article like a motherfucker. And I'm like, if he's setting the bar, then I know where I have to be at, what my work ethic has to be if I want to thrive in this space. And like, I think if people don't have that attitude going in, then they're doomed to fail. Like, because it is so.
You have a hunger.
Even
Right.
if Don has the experience and he's grinding at a stage that you are not at, but you have a hunger, you're like, all right, if that's the bar, I'll work towards it. Some people would look at it and go, fuck that. There is, there's shrinking violets and they exist too. So
man, when I started writing novels, I follow Ben Galley on Facebook. I see his continuous output when I start following him. He's like 2,000 words a day, 4,000 words a day. I'm like, okay, this is the output that you need to be a professional author. Like in the same way, I looked at your output and I go, this is what you need to be an actual top level critic. I looked at your output and I looked at Ben's output, and I always say, you're the two people that have turned me into an absolute grinder. Every day I get up, I'll write for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, sometimes 10, depending on free time. And I think it's so invaluable when you look at people that are in the spaces you want to operate at, and you look at the work ethic. Like, you're already well entrenched in the space. So is Ben Galley. You're writing for almost 10, 15 years, probably when I came on to 25YL. Ben's writing for like 10 years. And if you can't understand that there are people that are still grinding a decade in, and you're not willing to do the grind at the start, how are you ever going to get as good as these people? And they have to look at that,
There's
I'm starting to suspect Vinny met Don and Ben on Grindr.
I would have swiped left for you, Vinny. I would have jumped on that.
You're a generous lover, Don, and I appreciate you.
You're damn right.
Let's just cut to it. Awesome hand jobs, Don. Awesome.
It's true. I like that Vinny has small hands. It makes me ridiculous.
Well, I do. I got tiny hands. What can I say?
Tiny hands.
Smells like cabbage.
But what's the next 5 years look like for you? I actually hate that question, but at the same time, are you kind of like in a space where, for now, you're comfortable to continue, or is there something on the horizon for you?
That's one of those questions where I don't want to say I have to ask my wife, but no, but
I have to ask my wife.
No, like Vinny met me 3 years ago where I was more of a grinder, where I would do, like, now that like life has kind of gotten in the way and the kid stuff is busier because they're older. Like when they're in diapers, you can sneak away and write because they're just rock a little crib and go. Now that it's Daddy, what are you doing downstairs? Like, for example, it's a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock right now. My kids are upstairs probably playing or wanting to watch a movie, and they're like, Daddy's on his radio show. So at some point, my kids are gonna be like, well, I hope two things happen in 5 years. One, I can kind of still find my spaces and times to write and not lose momentum and hunger, or lose standing, which I don't think I will. But can I still find a way to be efficient with my time and still be present for family and things upstairs, especially as they get older? Because in 5 years, I'll have two teenagers, and hopefully by that point, they'll be old enough to go. I hope my children see that how fulfilling this is for me. Like, this is a creative expression and creative outlet thing for me. It's a fulfillment thing for me. And it's, and as much as it is, I guess, still kind of a hobby, where I hope my kids understand that, hey, Dad needs that, because that's what keeps him, just steady, active, sane, inspired, and all that. And it's not that I can't get inspired by being married and a dad and a teacher, but this is different and this is fun. And I hope that my kids, I always tease my oldest, who's my daughter. She's like, she just wrote her first movie review for her school paper here in 3rd grade for Encanto. And I tease her like, hey, someday this will all be yours, and she like, it's the hardware store or something, right? And she's like, no, I'm not going to do what you do. And I'm like, it's fine that you don't, but hey, someday I want you to get why I do it, know?
Yeah.
So I hope they think their dad is cool and doing a cool thing. And that it was worth the nights that he misses dinner, like, cause if I go to
what does your daddy do, sweetheart? When people create art and daddy shits on it.
So that is the hard thing is, I've had to set some limits where, every time I go to a movie, it's a bedtime I miss, and my kids notice. They're old enough now to notice. When they're in diapers and they're little, they don't notice, but now they are. So in 5 years, can I find the right work-life balance? And then on the professional side, I need 25YL to survive, and they will. I don't think Andrew's going to let that die. But just maintain good work, help more people into it. Keep expanding I founded and run a second Chicago critics group where the ideas are there to expand that and make that a little further? Or can we start giving like hardware awards and not just cute little Twitter certificates and stuff, where just keep that going, keep all the balls floating, I guess. In terms of ladder rungs, 5 years, I don't need any more than what I've got. Rotten Tomatoes, like if you would have told me, because here in America, that's a big deal site where if you getting there is cool enough and good enough. But now that it's like the Critics' Choice Association, where that's like trips to LA, televised awards, Hollywood this, Hollywood that, like I could go and do all that. And if I didn't live in Chicago and I lived in LA, but I have no desire to jump that far, but to dabble and get some chances to do more of that. Yeah, meet some people for a change. That'd be kind of cool. But I'm also not an autograph hound horn dog person that just needs to, suck Will Smith's dick. So yeah.
Even though we all know being incredibly glorious, he is a legend,
But I admit I got my first trip to LA this past November. Netflix paid for the entire Critics' Choice Association to come out to LA for their big debut of The Power of the Dog, which will probably end up winning the Oscars here. And they wined and dined us for a whole weekend to see the film, meet Benedict, Jesse, Kirsten, Jane Campion, and the whole crew, and do interviews and the whole red carpet kind of treatment of all that. And that same weekend, I just missed the chance to do the same thing with Focus Features had Kenneth Branagh in town and the whole Belfast team. And then King Richard was in town with all the Will Smith team. And in 4 days, I could have seen premieres of all those 3 movies and met all those people. And that, I admit, I didn't need it, and it's okay. I missed my kids and I was ready to go home, but I realized that would be kind of pretty cool. Yeah. And maybe my mom and dad and the kids I grew up with in school would be, because the other thing is I'm from a very rural area where I'm a dairy road, gravel road dairy farm kid. Small town outside the city, where the people who I grew up with who see what I do now, they're like, no, you're just a movie guy. But like, not that I need their justification, but yeah, if all of a sudden the little guy from the little town is hanging out with Kenneth Branagh and Will Smith, that would, maybe my mom might notice. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. It'd be cool to say I made it that far. Yeah.
And we circled back to just wanted your parents' approval.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Don, like, of all the years you've been doing reviews and all the movies that you covered, what movie throughout all the history that you love, that you would have been that you would have loved to be alive back then, that you would have loved to have seen it in its first screen and reviewed? What movie?
I think it would be more like my all-time favorite movie is Casablanca, but I know that movie kind of came and went in the studio system as just another Warner Brothers thing in the chain of things they did. Like that wasn't like an event back then. I always hear the stories of people who saw Psycho for the first time because no one knew anything about it, and even if people were smart enough to know the book, they didn't know where Hitchcock was going to take it. And all you hear about from reports of people like who saw like women fainting in the theaters, like I would love a communal theater experience to see Psycho. Psycho or Jaws. Jaws. That would be, because like we've all now been alive long enough to do the Star Wars thing. Like I know 1970 Star Wars isn't the same, but like when they did the special editions in the 90s there, we all made it to those. The remasters. We all made it to those moments in the theater. So I've had my Star Wars moment on the big screen, but yeah, like Jaws or Psycho, something that shocked the world. That'd be kind of fun to be around. Yeah, like premiere in Hollywood wise. What would I love to meet? Man, I don't know. Like a red carpet kind of thing. That'd probably be one of those like Avengers or something, like how cool of a red carpet would be where you meet all of those people, or you're in the theater with all those stars when Chris Evans catches Mjolnir and it's the showtime at the end of Endgame. Like something like that would be kind of cool. But yeah,
I knew it. Oh, I love that. I get chills.
Pure fanfare.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely, but the best kind.
And so Don, like you're a reviewer, and like there was a lot of movies on the horizon. We got like the Oscar season's coming up soon.
Yeah, a week from now. Yeah,
a week from now. And like, so of all the movies that are on the horizon and all the movies that like are going to come out this year, even outside of the award circle, is there anything that's caught your eye that you'd like to kind of recommend to us, give the fans at home a shout out to?
This is weird because we're kind of in that season where it's slow. It's not like summer yet, where I know business will pick up where it does. But it's nice that the pandemic's starting to break, where the last ones of those delayed movies are starting to finally get here. Like the Batman got here and it's good.
Yeah.
I'm a big, as much as he's a dick in public, or I hear he's a dick in real life, I'm a Tom Cruise kid. That was the 80s, 90s stud for me. So I want Top Gun Maverick, you know, like, and I love how, what was the news this week? It's going to debut in Cannes. Like, yeah, that seems like a French fancy fuckers movie. That'll be hilarious.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I haven't looked very ahead in the crystal ball of what is coming out this year. Like, my calendar has kind of always been circled for Batman and Top Gun. So, I stopped watching the Fast and Furious series when Paul Walker died, just because it seemed like that's when you should have ended it. But so I'm not.
I feel like
first in line for like, Fast 9. You know,
I chuckled at the worst possible time there.
I was
like, I was like, Fast and Furious always makes me chuckle, and then you follow up after Paul Walker died, and I'm like, shit, that's a reasonable reason to watching the franchise. You know what I mean? But I will never stop watching those franchises.
I need to get back in and try.
Dude, they're in space in one of them. Is all I'm going to say. So
that's
work your way towards that one.
See, the thing is, I don't know if you're joking or not. No, I don't. They got pretty stupid.
Yeah. I mean, you got Doctor Strange coming out. You've got, you know, the big hitters there.
Are you excited for Moon Knight?
Yeah. A couple of my critics friends have seen the first 4 episodes already. I have not. I'm not a TV guy, so, or I'm not on that TV wavelength of lists and all that, but I hear it's good, so we'll see.
Nice.
I guess in terms of like a stick a fork in it or stick a nail in the coffin, when they started to advertise that this new Jurassic World movie is like the last one,
Dominion.
I'm like, good, it deserves to be done. So I'll be ready to see that off. But no, like when you get to the later of the year, like I'm trying to look ahead of your like award season and like what's that like big thing that maybe could be the, you know, next year's Oscar thing. And I don't know. Yeah, because they keep bumping schedules and stuff. Because you got supposedly Black Panther's gonna be here, Creed 3, Avatar. You know what? That's the thing I'm looking forward to. Is like, I know everyone likes to, it's a popular thing is to shit on Avatar, but everyone who shits on Avatar forgets that they were first in line in 2007, like everybody else, to go see it on the big screen. It was a spectacle, and James Cameron has never not done something wildly impressive where he's sitting back on whatever he's been doing all this time. Where Avatar 2, I'm willing to bet will blow our minds about something. I don't know what, but
has it come too late?
Yeah, but December, this is a late December movie. But
no, I mean, has it come too late in terms of how far it is away from its original outing?
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. That just is an open-end question.
And is it going to be 3D or is it just going to go 4K?
Well, what's the thing I heard that like he's going like underwater, but legit physically underwater. So like I know we've seen him do The Abyss, but like, what can you do now with what he can do? Like, he'll do something ballsy, crazy, wild that'll make us all our eyes pop out of our heads, and we'll be like, why did we ever doubt him? You know. So that's the other one, Avatar 2.
And so, like, Dom, before we let you get the fuck out of here, what do you think is going to win Best Picture at the Oscars? And Noel, do you have any opinions on this?
Ooh.
No, I'm not an Oscar.
Yeah,
is that what he calls somebody who's really into Oscars?
I don't know what those names are, but
and that's Cara.
Yeah. I admit, the Oscars are. I'll say this as the jaded shit on critic, if anything, Sam. I didn't watch the Oscars last year. I was kind of bored by the nominees. I know it was a weird show of like pandemic-y, partial this and partial that. This year, the whole idea of them like shaving out categories and 3 really disconnected hosts, I probably won't watch it this year. Will win, should win, will win. Ooh, Best Picture. See, that's the one category where you could throw a wild card in there, just to throw a wild card in there. I'll say it like this: if Kenneth Branagh, and here's how you can see how the night's going or not going. If Kenneth Branagh doesn't win for Best Original Screenplay earlier in the night, because you feel like you got to get, it's like it's his time to finally win one, and he's nominated for Director, Picture, and Screenplay, where like 3 nominations, get him 1. If he doesn't win Original Screenplay, I think there's an outside chance Belfast surprises Power of the Dog to win Best Picture, to be like the feel-good pick. Like maybe it's not the most auteur perfect movie the way that people try to put Power of the Dog to be, but maybe that's the sentimental favorite that just starts to win a few votes. So maybe Belfast has a shot if Ken like that, but that's how you can tell how the night's going. If Kenneth Branagh wins in screenplay and that's the spot you give him an Oscar, then Power of the Dog is going to win Best Picture. But if Kenneth Branagh doesn't win original screenplay and they give that to like Paul Thomas Anderson, which would be his first time winning in like 8 nominations too for a movie that's not even his best movie, then it's just going to go to Power of the Dog, you know. But Belfast has a shot, I think. I don't know.
Well, and so really kind of depends on what happens earlier on in the awards. You think does that kind of come into people's thinking when they're making out these awards? Like, it's like if we give him this, we shouldn't give him. We should give someone as this.
It's weird. Lately, it feels like that. In the last 10, 15 years, they've done a better. Like, we haven't had like a juggernaut winner in a long time, like a movie that's won 8 or more Oscars in the same year. Like, we've had a lot of these, like the leading winner of each year is like 4 awards, 5 awards, maybe 6.
Yeah.
You know, or the movie that wins the most awards is some movie that sweeps arts and technical, but then doesn't win Best Picture. Yeah. Like that could be Dune this year. Watch Dune win 4 or 5 awards and never get a whiff anything past cinematography.
Yeah.
So, whereas here comes Power of the Dog as the artsy one that could be like if you do the artsy pick, it's Power of the Dog. If you do the sentimental, people's choicey kind of favorite thing, like the way Green Book has won in the past. Now, I don't think Belfast is as dumb as Green Book, but at all. I think Belfast is wonderful and deserves to win. Like, if I'm voting for Belfast. But no, I think Power of the Dog has done enough, and it's a woman directing. It's, you know, it's generated that look of importance that people like to put on that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I've seen years where they like to spread the wealth. Like, we can't give every award to the same movie. Let's give director to somebody else, give screenplay to somebody else. But then sometimes it doesn't turn out like when like Alfonso, like Birdman.
Yeah.
Like, he swept everything. Like, he got picture, he got screenplay, he got director. Like,
such a good movie.
Sometimes you get all 3. Like, when Parasite won, that was screenplay. He got 4 Oscars that night, Bong Joon-ho. So, like, I don't know. Sometimes it falls in a place where there's a big sweep. So we'll see. I don't know. I think the Power, but if I'm putting money down, Power of the Dog's gonna win.
Something you mentioned that like it's been a while since something's done a big sweep, like a Titanic did like 11, and like the Return of the King did something like 13 or something crazy.
We have a lot of movies that get many nominations. Like Dune has what, 10, 12 nominations, but it's not going to win. But it's not going to win 10. It's not going to win half of them. And we've seen some shutouts. Like American Hustle got 10 nominations and won 0. The Irishman got 10 nominations, won 0. There's even on a low end, Dune can win like 2 out of 10. Like, it maybe wins score for Zimmer and visual effects, and then it gets beat everywhere else.
I don't know. And do you think because we're not seeing like one movie sweep the board is because there's actually a wider variety of movies in terms of the high level content than we had 20 years ago? Or do you think it's the exact opposite, that there's no one standout anymore, that movies have kind of plateaued a little bit?
I think it's the latter. You get all these little niche things that are good at certain things but not good at everything, and then the other piece, like when we're talking about those movies that have won 10 or more, the Titanics, the Lord of the Rings, now you have these audience favorites where everybody loves it for everything. And that's not Spider-Man this year. Like, Spider-Man is loved, but there's nothing about Spider-Man in arts and technical that would make it on the board the way it would everything else. So I think it's the latter. We haven't had. And look at it, like especially when you think about, well, James Cameron again, like Avatar and Titanic, like we haven't had a big sweeping monster thing in a long time that is everything, that is prestige and popularity at the same time. Lord of the Rings was the last one.
And Lord of the Rings, a lot of people say, actually got rewarded for the full trilogy more so than the third installment.
Totally.
Yeah, because the first 2 were probably better movies and neither of them got any awards.
So. Yeah. But that was the spot to finally, like, hey, after 3 movies, look at what you've done.
It's the end of their story, really, as well. They can say now it's a complete movie in air quotes, because you completed your story, your trilogy, because the way the Lord of the Rings in particular was set up, the Fellowship of the Ring was a complete cliffhanger, as was Two Towers. So you know, it only really came to any kind of resolution in Return of the King. So you can kind of understand that kind of what's the word I'm looking for, that kind of rationale behind why
what do you think? Do you think it's the latter or the former when you were describing it?
I think at the moment there's there's no iconic movies being made anymore, really, outside of the big ticket events like the Batman and Spider-Man, and they're iconic not just because of quality, but because of the nostalgia, because of their mass appeal, because of all the things they have going for them. The reason why they keep getting rehashed, like Spider-Man, we're going to see it every few years because it's a $1 billion franchise. Same with Batman. Like the Batman itself is going to probably take north of $1 billion in the cinemas. Of course, you know.
Yeah,
easily. So like I just think that all the big ticket items are actually the ones that really stand out, and like you don't have a Titanic standing out anymore, something that can actually garner that award kind of praise. And the movies now that are really standing out, the awards kind of snub their nose at them a lot of the times. So I think the really high level arts films aren't really getting the same interest they used to have, and a lot of them are finding their ways on streaming services and not in theaters. So even though award seasons are actually giving them 4 or 5 awards or whatever, like that, they're not really reaching the same global effect that they used to. Like a Lord of the Rings, you don't really have like anything that's going to sweep because there's nothing out there like that people are going to go see in the same way that they used to, and because people now ingest their content in a completely different fashion, that you don't really have these juggernauts in the same way. Like you oftentimes don't have an award juggernaut that's also a box office juggernaut anymore.
Right.
It's very rare.
And then you throw the pandemic in where we can barely go to movies, and how much is the public going to see? So I think we'll get back there. The right movie will come around someday. And maybe these are what we say they are. They're generational movies. And when you think about it, we had Titanic, Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings, and a bunch of Star Wars prequels all within 10 years.
Yeah.
And that was like the one big window. Now we have this window of Marvel where some of them break into, like Black Panther breaks into some Oscar stuff, and then maybe more will. But yeah, and then the generation before that would be something like Jurassic Park in '93. So, but that got nominated for nothing but arts and technical too. So something will come. We'll get bored enough, or we'll get creatively bankrupt enough that somebody will shake it up. But for now, it's silos and niches. You're right.
Yeah. And I think because a lot of these big ticket items are wandering onto streaming service in long form storytelling as well.
Yeah.
Like with 10 years ago, The Witcher, that would have been a film series, not a TV series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The new Lord of the Rings that's going on Amazon. So I think the way awards are going, once upon a time, it was a real shutout. They're like, Netflix, you're not really welcome. And they're like, oh shit, Netflix are one of the only people making good stuff. Like, who are we going to give awards to?
There was something that was considered cheap about a film for a streaming service. It was considered cheap. Even if it wasn't cheap. But it was considered tacky, might be a better word.
It was like DTV, direct to video. That's what.
Or the straight to disc stuff from when we were younger. You know, But now, and that might be the 5 years thing that changes everything. Is if theaters can't recover, and TV keeps being at least popular, I don't know how profitable it is, because and here Spider-Man probably proves that, like the theatrical dollar or euro at the same time, like that's still where the most money can be made, is when you get everyone paying their $10-12 to go to a movie.
Yeah, not in Russia though.
Yeah, no, but like that's the place where the most money can be made, where the theaters won't die because there's too much money to be made. But TV might be the creative place you get more stuff, and I think we're seeing that now. Like the volume of really good television is right now surpassing movies 5 to 1.
Yeah, and because people are obsessed with that long form storytelling now, aren't we? Though, like because we got so used,
rightfully so.
Yeah, and now anytime you look at a 2-hour movie and you go, that would be a great 6-episode miniseries. I think we're spoiled for choice a little bit, you know, that kind of way. And like I think now what you'll see with the award seasons, like and all this one, they're going to look now more and more to streaming services to find the actual picks for these categories. And like you might actually see I think Jared Leto came out and recently said Marvel are the reason theaters are still alive.
He's right,
you know, and that's why I have to laugh because
they make money.
Yeah, and Martin Scorsese and all these people that derive Marvel, the only reason they actually have a big screen to go show their movies on is because the MCU exists. And I just think it's hilarious that the way the industry now has to evolve because of the two things that they malign the most. Superhero movies and streaming services are the actually only two things that are propping up the industry right now. And I think it's absolutely fucking hilarious.
Because like when Power of the Dog wins Best Picture,
Elliot will explode.
Yeah, well, I looked up, like And now, who knows how many people have seen it on Netflix? But like its box office number, I just looked it up, is $388,000. It has not even made $1 million.
Yeah.
Not even half of $1 million. Belfast, on the other hand, had some theatrical time and has made $40 million. It's a nice, modest movie. Probably didn't cost that much to make, but when The Power of the Dog wins, we're going to be talking about a sub $1 million earning movie winning Best Picture. When was the last time that happened?
Yeah,
the 50s, probably.
Well, I mean, accounting for inflation, you would say never.
Yeah, probably.
You would simply say never.
Never.
You know, because if you go back far enough, you're talking like, you know, the film made $12,000 by 40 standards or something. Yeah, so I would go as far as to say never. Actually, winning the Oscar, never. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And people will.
Yeah. And it's not all bad news. We're only talking about what the world looks like now. That film will make money. That's all that matters, is the money, the numbers at the end of the day. But yeah, it's funny.
It's just making Netflix, money in a different way, isn't it?
Yeah, and Netflix can laugh all the way to the bank because they get your money every time you re-up every month. Like if they have 220 million subscribers at $14 a month times 12 months, that's like $40 billion a year.
It's ridiculous.
They're doing fine. Whereas Marvel swung its shot, and even if Spider-Man makes $2 billion just on its own, Netflix just made 40 with everything they do.
That's why Disney Plus exists.
Exactly. That's the regular, never stopping money versus you only get money if people show up.
Yeah,
people show up automatically with the streaming.
Because like at the end of the day, box office is like your birthday money. You get it once a year. You know what I mean? Whereas your streaming service, that's your fucking wages. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's a big difference. Like it's a huge difference. But so
that'll be a 5-year thing. That'll be where are we in 5? What's
that
all look
so
like?
You think in 5 years that the landscape of the industry will look completely different than it does now?
I think so. I think the pandemic beat us up enough where the only things that are big ticket, like we're saying in theaters, are Batman, are big screen movies. We may never see a movie like The Power of the Dog or a little indie or a small drama or romantic comedy. Those things will be on your screen and not on a big one. I think it'll big stuff only. It'll be a carnival.
Yeah, because like back in the 90s, like the backbone of cinema was the high level dramas, the thrillers,
the usual stuff.
Yeah, and like all the stuff that we watched, like the kind of movies that you'd watch 10 times and never get bored of. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? And all those
miss the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of that shit now is complete. Like The Power of the Dog 10 years ago, that's a front and center 10-pole drama. Going to get the Oscar rollout, everything like that would have been front and center. Like, you know, it just shows that the really kind of the artsy, the kind of really niche content is going to slip into streaming services, because streaming services in their nature are catered to their subscribers, and they're always looking at ways that they can hook new subscribers. And that's why they create all these little niches within their actual own services. And it's genius. Like, it's genius.
Yeah. And because the steady money is there, they don't have they're not going to lose a lot of money when something fails. Like The Irishman, they took a big shot on. I think The Irishman cost $155 million to make.
Ouch.
And they tried to do some box office time with that, and it made like $8 million at the box office. So technically, they got a big haircut. But Netflix, when you can get the same thing, $12 out of every person in the world all year long, they can swallow those losses and swing big swings, gobble up this, gobble up that, buy off.
Me and Vinny touched on this. Yeah, we touched on this. Yeah, there's weathering the storm.
Yes,
there's companies who are big enough to weather the storm.
Yeah,
and there's companies who this would be their bread and butter, and they sink or swim on it.
Yeah,
but like Amazon Prime or whatever, they could weather a storm if they need to. Yeah,
I think we're watching the transition. Look at Paramount. Paramount, which their bread and butter were those 90s movies like Kiss the Girl, Star Trek, the Mission Impossible. Paramount, what they're doing on Paramount Plus is outdoing what, like, I haven't seen a Paramount movie in months. Like, their film production numbers are just down, where I think they've resigned to the fact that I think we're losing too much in the big screen, where we're gonna have to resort to the little screen and make it work. Like, because these Transformers movies and Mission Impossible movies are just, they take a long time to get around. And whereas Disney now they're crazy. They have both. Like, they're nailing it on the big screen, and now the small screen is massive. So in 5 years, it'd be crazy to see where the concentration is.
Yeah. So Dom, before I let you get out here, you want to tell the folks where they can find you on social media? And
Sure.
we'll skedaddle.
Yeah, no, you can search Every Movie Has a Lesson. You can search that and you'll find my Facebook stuff. You'll find my Twitter stuff. Obviously, do the big outlet here of 25YL, 25 years later site.com for the more formal reviews I do. You can find me on Letterboxd, Rotten Tomatoes, Critics' Choice, all that. And of course, I would be remiss if I don't mention that turd of a man, Will Johnson, and the Cinephile History Fit podcast that we host together through 25YL and the Ruminations Radio Network.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming, Don. It's fucking
thanks
awesome.
For having. I was about to say thanks for having us.
That's why you don't do
I went through the McDonald's. Yeah, I went through the McDonald's drive-through, and she said thanks and joy, and I said thanks you too, and I've been obsessed with it ever since.
Oh man, I said that one time. It's like I was like, someone said to me, "Oh, have a nice birthday," and I was like, "Yeah, thanks you too." I was like, "Oh, I'm such a fucking idiot."
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow.
That's going to fester for about a week.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Anyway, let's get the fuck out of here, guys.
I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, John Tui.
And that was MDK Presents Don Shanahan. Don, thank you so much for coming and appreciate you, motherfucker. See you next time, folks.
Thanks, Dan.
Peace. Thanks, Dan.
Peace.
Peace.